Funding for the 2015 World Food Prize has been provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, and a grant from the W.T. and Edna M. Dahl Trust.
On a crisp autumn evening in America's heartland, leaders from across the globe have descended into Iowa's capital city of Des Moines to honor agricultural breakthroughs and discuss the path forward for hunger initiatives. Moments ago, guests from across the world climbed the steps of the state capitol for a night of dialogue and honors, all culminating tonight in the 2015 World Food Prize ceremony. Welcome inside the State House chambers of the Iowa Capitol. Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. Des Moines plays host to tonight's gathering of hundreds of global leaders waging a fight against world hunger issues. Tonight, we will look back at the legacy of Norman Borlaug, acknowledge the work of young Americans in the agriculture sector, and honor the 2015 World Food Prize laureate. Tonight's mix of dialogue, honors, and music begins now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate Award Ceremony. Please welcome our special guests. From the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, Margaret Catley Carlson of Canada. Dr. W. Ronnie Kaufman of Cornell University. Sir Gordon Conway of the Imperial College in London. Dr. Louise Fresco, President of Wageningen University in the Netherlands. The founding chairman of the World Food Prize and the longest-serving member of the Council of Advisors, A.S. Al Clossie. Now please welcome past World Food Prize laureates. The 1996 laureate from India, Dr. Gurdeep Ghosh. Also from India, Dr. Surendra Vassal, the 2000 Millennium Laureate. Dr. Per Pinstrup Andersen from Denmark, the 2001 laureate. The 2002 World Food Prize laureate, a native of Cuba from the United States, Dr. Pedro Sanchez. From the United Nations, the 2003 laureate, Catherine Bertini. Dr. Monty Jones from Sierra Leone, the 2004 laureate. Former Minister of Agriculture of Brazil, the 2006 World Food Prize laureate, His Excellency Alisson Paulinelli. The 2007 laureate from the United States, Dr. Philip Nelson. A native of Ethiopia, Dr. Gabisa Ijeta, the 2009 laureate. Reverend David Beckman of the United States, the 2010 laureate. Also from the United States, the 2013 laureate, Dr. Rob Fraley. The 2014 laureate, a native of India and a citizen of Mexico, Dr. Sanjaya Ratharam. And seated in the chamber, the first World Food Prize laureate and chairman of the Laureate Selection Committee, who just celebrated his 90th birthday, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan of India. Please welcome, representing the bipartisan leadership of the state of Iowa, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Linda Upmeyer, and Iowa Senate President, Pam Yoakum. House Minority Leader Mark Smith and Representative Peter County. The Lieutenant Governor of Iowa, the Honorable Kim Reynolds. From the Iowa Congressional Delegation, Representative David Young. Representative Steve King. At this time, please join us in welcoming our distinguished national and international guests. From Kenya, the chair of the Shashakawa African Association, Professor Ruth Aniango. From Rwanda, the recipient of the 2015 Borlaug Award for Field Research and Application, Eric Pullman. Representing the Embassy of Bangladesh, Minister Counselor Sahabuddin Petwari. Representing the United Nations, the former Minister of Fisheries of Iceland and Assistant Director General of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, His Excellency Arne Mathiasen. The former Minister of Agriculture for Liberia, Her Excellency Florence Chenoweth. The Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, and Rural Development of Kosovo, His Excellency Memli Krasniki. The Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to the United States of America, His Excellency Jose Quisia Jr. The Secretary of Agriculture of the United States and the former Governor of Iowa, the Honorable Tom Vilsack. And now, welcome the World Food Prize Laureate Party and distinguished guests of honor. World Food Prize Foundation Chairman John Ruan III and Foundation President Ambassador Kenneth Quinn. Now, please welcome the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate, Sir Fazle Hasan Abed. Tonight's distinguished special guest of honor, the former President of the Republic of Malawi and founder of the Joyce Banda Foundation, Her Excellency, Mrs. Joyce Banda. Presiding at tonight's ceremony, please welcome the Governor of the State of Iowa, the Honorable Terry E. Branstad.
No one, not a single person, should go hungry. I want to see an end to hunger everywhere within my lifetime.
As global population grows at a staggering rate, the battle against hunger struggles to keep up. It was a singular dedication to feeding this ever-expanding world that led to Dr. Norman E. Borlaug's vision of creating the World Food Prize. Born on a small Iowa farm in 1914, Dr. Borlaug's pioneering work to produce higher-yielding strains of wheat ushered in the Green Revolution, preventing large-scale famine and earning him the title of the man who has saved more lives than any other person who has ever lived. Shortly after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, Dr. Borlaug embarked on a mission to recognize and inspire those individuals who lead the fight against world hunger. And in 1986, the World Food Prize was born. The first World Food Prize was awarded in 1987 to Dr. M.S. Swaminathan of India. However, just 3 short years later, the future of the World Food Prize was in serious doubt after corporate restructuring ended financial support for the prize. Dr. Borlaug would once again have to find a sponsor. This time, his search led him back to Iowa and toward the formation of a partnership that would forever change the World Food Prize. Noted businessman and philanthropist John Ruan, who, like Dr. Borlaug, was born in a small Iowa town in 1914, had a long-standing vision that Iowa be seen as the agricultural capital of the world. Thus, a resonant chord was struck in Rouen, and in 1990, he announced his intent to bring the prize to Iowa, thereby securing its future. In its new home in Des Moines, the prize would not only survive, but flourish and expand. The World Food Prize laureates hail from countries around the world and have been at the forefront of the single greatest period of food production in all of human history. They are responsible for a diverse array of accomplishments, including dramatically improving rice production in Asia and Africa, the development of quality protein maize in Mexico, the eradication of pests and diseases, promoting and expanding the dairy and seed industries in India, reforming the food policy framework in China and countries in the Middle East, and utilizing methods of microcredit, aquaculture, and humanitarian relief to empower poor rural women. By focusing attention on the accomplishments of the World Food Prize laureates, the hunger crisis was brought to the forefront of the international consciousness. Fulfilling John Ruan's dream, each year the World Food Prize gathers international experts to address critical issues in global food security through its international symposium known as the Borlaug Dialogue. The annual Laureate Award ceremony is a night of celebration to commemorate the advances in the fight against global hunger. Fulfilling Norman Borlaug's vision, world leaders have called the World Food Prize the Nobel Prize for Food and Agriculture. And so, thanks to the remarkable accomplishments of its laureates and the contributions of its founders, what began as one man's idea has grown to become the world's foremost award, recognizing great accomplishments and inspiring even greater achievements in the fight to eradicate hunger in the 21st century.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of the World Food Prize Foundation, Ambassador Kenneth M. Quinn.
Well, everyone here, everyone watching on Iowa Public Television, watching our webcast around the world, especially at BRAC and Bangladesh, to all of you, welcome. Welcome to the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate Award Ceremony as we present the foremost international award for combating hunger and promoting global food security. Governor Branstad, we are so grateful to you and First Lady Chris Branstad for presiding at tonight's ceremony. And to you, Governor, and the bipartisan leadership of the legislature, thank you for the incomparable privilege of holding our ceremony here in the magnificent Iowa State Capitol. I still get goosebumps looking at those banners when we drive up on the front of the Capitol. This is so wonderful. Sir Fazle and Lady Sawat, my wife, Lei Sun, joins with me in extending our warmest welcome to you. And as we celebrate the theme of empowering women during our symposium all this week, Your Excellency Joyce Banda, we are thrilled to have a distinguished leader like you. Only the second woman ever to be president and lead an African nation here with us. And you're here tonight along with all of the women political leaders elected in Iowa who here, Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, so cool that Speaker Upmeyer, you and Senator Yoakum, first time in Iowa history, women are leading both legislative chambers. Yeah. And Auditor Mary Moseman is here as well. And I'm only sorry that Senator Joni Ernst from our congressional delegation couldn't be here, but pleased to have Congressman King, Congressman Young, thank you for being here. And I want to send out a special welcome to ambassadors, members of the diplomatic corps here, Ambassador Quisia, my friend from the Philippines when I served there. and as well Ambassador Tony Hall, who is here tonight, one of the great hunger fighters in the world. Ambassador Chuck Larson is here, Iowa's own, and Ambassador Carlos Portes from Marshalltown here as well. We're so pleased, all of you and all the members of the Diplomatic Corps, Consuls General who could be here. Now, I want to especially acknowledge the Ruan family, as you saw in that video, and that, well, John Ruan is no longer able to be with us. John Ruan III, his son, is carrying forward his father's legacy as chairman of the World Food Prize Foundation. So, John, please stand up so we can thank you and the Ruan family. Janice, stand up. Where are the Ruans? Yeah, the Ruan family over here. Come on, that's it, yes. Thank you for all you have done for the World Food. There would not be a World Food Prize except for the Ruan family. Now, last year we celebrated the Borlaug Centennial with the unveiling of Dr. Borlaug's statue at the U.S. Capitol. What a day that was. And on the side of the base of the statue it says, "The man who saved 1 billion lives." And to commemorate his achievements and reflect his ongoing inspiration to us, at this ceremony, we always keep Norm's chair empty so that we'll be aware of his spirit and that he's here with us. Now, tomorrow, October 16th, is the United Nations World Food Day. It's going to be a big celebration in Milan. But here in Iowa, it's also Dr. Norman E. Borlaug World Food Prize Day. And to help us honor Dr. Borlaug tonight, we have 14 World Food Prize laureates. You saw them introduced before. This is the most life-saving achievement ever assembled in this chamber, except maybe when Norman Borlaug was in here alone. While Norm can't be here, we're very pleased that we have Dr. Borlaug's daughter, his son and granddaughter with us tonight. Jeannie, Bill, Julie, thank you for your presence. Thank you for joining us, carrying forward your father's and your grandfather's legacy to eliminate hunger in the world. Now, to highlight the importance of this work, each year we begin this ceremony with the reading of a poem entitled "In Any Language," written by an Iowa hunger fighter, Lucille Wilson. Lucille's here tonight. She's sitting back there. And she was at Hunger Hike last Sunday with Crystal Harris and others. And she told me that her 90th birthday is coming up. So the other day at the Hunger Summit, we sang happy birthday to her. But it made me think. So Lucille's 90. M.S. Swaminathan just turned 90 on August the 7th. Al Clossey's 90-something, I know. Norm lived to be 95. You know, Al was always the feistiest guy on the Council of Advisors. He hasn't lost it. But anyway, Norm lived to be 95. John Ruan Sr. lived to be 96. I mean, the lesson seems clear. Hunger fighters live longer. So if you needed any other reason to be involved in this, it's a long life. Now, to read Lucille Wilson's poem, please welcome Dr. Norman Borlaug's daughter, Jeannie Borlaug Laube. Jeannie.
In Any Language by Lucille Morgan Wilson. In any language, hunger is an ugly word. There is no music in hunger, the rumble of empty stomachs, the monotonous whine of a child wasted with disease, the moan of the mother whose baby lies, bloated and still in her arms. Hunger is a listless din of apathy, bred of weakness, the faded brown and gray of dead leaves after autumn has ebbed.
Thank you, Jeannie. I always used to read that poem when Norm was here, and kind of reminds me of all of those days in his presence. And Jeannie is carrying forward her father's legacy as the chair of the Borlaug Global Rust Initiative with World Food Prize Council of Advisors member Dr. Ronnie Kaufman. They were just together in Australia working on that, so good on ya, I guess they say in Down Under. But the World Food Prize annual events have also become the gathering place for others who are also carrying forward Norman Borlaug's work as part of programs bearing Norm's name. And many of them are here tonight. I want you to meet them. There are the U.S. Department of Agriculture Borlaug Fellows, the USAID Borlaug LEAP Fellows, the Monsanto Beechill Borlaug Scholars, the Fraley Borlaug Scholar from the University of Illinois, the Purdue Borlaug Fellows, the Michigan State University Borlaug Be Heard, that's H-E-A-R-D, participants, the Borlaug Institute at Texas A&M University, the Norman Borlaug Training Initiative, the Iowa Norman Borlaug Statue Committee, the CAST Borlaug Communications Award winner, as well as the winner of the Rockefeller Foundation's Norman Borlaug Award for Field Research and Application. I just have to rest for a second here. I mean, the list goes on, so not long. But there's also the Sasakawa Africa Association that Norm headed for several decades. And beyond that, we have farmers from around the world here with Truth About Trade. They're all up in the Borlaug balcony, most of ours. So wave your hands up there. I want them up there. Everybody can see them. Let's give them a round of applause. Governor, that took so long. I'm thinking about next year. I'm just going to say people who don't have Borlaug in their name or title wave their hands. There will be a few people, and it'll be much shorter. Anyway, Norman Borlaug and John Ruan Sr. shared another passion: to inspire the next generation of high school students. And so in 1994, they established the World Food Prize Global Youth Institute for high school students. Started out small with only 13 students that year, all from Iowa, but oh, how it has grown. But I'm going to let the students tell you about it themselves.
One of the defining moments of the Global Youth Institute for me was getting to talk to rural African farmers, because I had never been out of the country before, and it totally took me out of my borders, even though I was still in the U.S.
This summer, I conducted a research project on detecting and analyzing the nutritional content in soybeans to improve soy products to benefit human health.
I not only found mentors, I found my role models, I found the real heroes of society. And I was able to interact with them on a day-to-day basis.
All across Iowa, hundreds of high school students just like these are starting on their own path to join the fight against hunger through the World Food Prize youth education programs. The wide array of programs aims to educate and inspire the next generation of great scientific and humanitarian leaders. That was the shared vision of Nobel Peace Prize winner and World Food Prize founder Dr. Norman E. Borlaug and Des Moines entrepreneur and philanthropist John Ruan when they created the Global Youth Institute in 1994. Since then, the World Food Prize education programs have grown to be recognized as among the most innovative in the world. The Youth Institute, which introduces students to global food security issues, has expanded nationally, and premier internship programs both in the U.S. and abroad provide promising young men and women first-hand experiences in the field and the chance to build upon their interest and interact with the world's foremost leaders and scientists. Each year, through the World Food Prize Youth Institute, high school students and their teachers explore and learn about the ever-increasing worldwide demand for food and the complexity of issues that affect food security, from water scarcity to gender equality. Students research and write papers about these pressing global challenges and gather at regional and state youth institutes to present their findings and discuss solutions with their peers, local, state, and international experts. The top students from across the United States then travel to Des Moines each October with their high school teachers to participate as delegates in the Global Youth Institute. held in conjunction with a presentation of the $250,000 World Food Prize and the Borlaug Dialogue International Symposium. Students and teachers participate in World Food Prize events and are immersed in an exchange of ideas with the world's top agriculture experts, research scientists, industry leaders, and heads of state leading the fight against hunger. Students who participate can then apply to become Borlaug Ruan International interns. Each summer, over 20 students are sent on life-changing 2-month research assignments in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. They work alongside leading research scientists in the field and laboratory to solve the most significant issues facing agriculture and the environment, economic development, and human health. Once in college, these exceptional young men and women may also become Wallace Carver interns, a unique opportunity to collaborate with prominent American scientists and policymakers through paid internships at USDA research centers and offices across the United States. Through this innovative program, talented students in agriculture, life sciences, and other fields critical to the fight against hunger learn firsthand to analyze agricultural and economic policy, assist in the management of food, nutrition, and rural development programs, and take part in groundbreaking field and laboratory-based research.
This experience has changed my life in numerous ways. It's made me consider majors I never thought I would consider 5 years ago. It's made me consider issues that weren't at the top of my list. And it added a whole different aspect to my life, and it really changed the course of where I wanted to be and where I want to be in 10 years. Because now I know that I want to be a fighter in this fight. I want to be in the ring, taking down food insecurity and really helping those around the world.
Now, this year's Global Youth Institute has almost 200 student participants and an equal number of teachers. Students from Iowa and 29 other states, as well as groups from 7 foreign countries. And for the 3rd year in a row, a group of students from Hubei province, Iowa's Chinese sister state. And they're all watching this telecast live at the Hall of Laureates. There they are, there they are. And let's wave back at them. That's hey, hi, and that. But remember, don't put your drinks down on the furniture over there. I get in a lot of trouble with Mrs. Ruan when that happens. So, and there are also over there many of the 31 students who were participants in this year's USDA Wallace Carver program, fellows program that was an inspiration of Secretary Vilsack. And Mr. Secretary, we're so pleased that you and Mrs. Vilsack could be with us tonight. And the program started with a conversation with the Secretary and I had at the Tokyo Railroad Station as we were about to ride in the Emperor's train to Yamanashi for the 50th anniversary of Iowa's special relationship and of the Yamanashi hog lift. And Mrs. Vilsack and I dressed up as samurai, and we marched. Secretary Northey got to ride on the horse as the leader, and we were walking behind him on the horse, which made that we were looking down all the time. And I know you're worried that I'm about to put the picture up of you and me in our samurai garb, but I couldn't find them. So, but since then, Secretary had this idea. By the time we got to Yamanashi, we had reformed it. And since then, we've had 110 of the most promising high school and college students take summer positions at USDA research centers all across the United States. And so thank you for the partnership we've had. 5 years building this program to be a premier element in inspiring the next generation. A number of your staff are here. I want to thank them, especially Dr. Chavanda Jacobs-Young, who is here for her leadership of this effort and who make it possible. Now, in its 17th year, the signature element of our youth program is the Borlaug Ruan International Internship. This past summer, we sent 23 high school students, 17 and 18-year-olds, on life-changing assignments at leading agricultural research centers, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Middle East. Amanda James is here. She was one of the very first who did this back in the 90s. I won't tell them how old you are, Amanda, don't worry. And each October, the World Food Prize presents two special awards to those Borlaug-Ruan interns whose work was judged to best reflect both their scientific excellence and cross-cultural understanding. Now, here to present these awards are two dynamic young women who are carrying forward their grandfather's legacies, John Ruan Sr.'s granddaughter, Dr. Rachel McLean, and Norman Borlaug's granddaughter, Julie Borlaug.
The first Borlaug-Ruan Intern Award is named for Iowa Agriculture Ambassador John Crystal, who spent decades during the Cold War promoting greater understanding between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. This year, there are two recipients of the John Crystal Intern Award. Alexandra Saurez of Center City, Minnesota, who interned at BRAC in Bangladesh and is majoring in environmental studies and economics at Wellesley College. Ashley Vaughn of Clive, Iowa, whose assignment was at the African Insect Science Research Center in Kenya, and who is a sophomore at Iowa State University, majoring in biology and global resources systems. The second award is named for the late Iowa State Senator Elaine Simoniak, who was a passionate supporter of the World Food Prize and who played an instrumental role in connecting Norman Borlaug and John Ruan. There are also two recipients of the Simone Award. Sam Harris of Greenbrier, Arkansas, whose internship was at the Maharashtra Seed Company in Jalna, India, and who's currently a first-year student at the University of Arkansas, majoring in agricultural business. And Sophie Olson of La Crosse, Wisconsin, who interned at the China National Hybrid Rice Research Center in Changsha, China, and who is now attending Wellesley College, majoring in anthropology.
On behalf of our grandfathers, we want to thank the next generation hunger fighters, and could you please give them another round of applause?
Now please welcome the Vice President of the World Food Prize Foundation, Mashal Hussain.
Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore, the most revered Bengali poet and philosopher, once wrote, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy." It's this philosophy that has guided our 2015 World Food Prize laureate as he has uplifted millions from poverty. This evening's performance brings together the poetry of Rabindranath Tagore in what is known as Rabindra Sangeet, songs that are cultural treasures of the Bengali people. Sir Fazle, we know that you have great fondness for Rabindra Sangeet, and in your honor, we have invited Shama Rehman, your most favorite performer, and she has traveled all the way from Bangladesh to perform a musical tribute for you. Ms. Rahman uses her music to build friendships across cultural boundaries and performs for audiences around the globe. Tonight, she's performing 2 songs of inspiration that exemplify the struggles and solidarity of the Bengali people. Please join me in welcoming Shama Rahman.
শোনাও প্রাণে প্রাণে মঙ্গল
Wow. Come back, come back, come back, come back. Let's have another hand for Shama Raman. Wow, that was so haunting, so wonderful. Thank you so much. I have to tell you a story. I hope, Sir Fazle, you were surprised because, you know, I had to go back to my old government days at the State Department and working in the intelligence side, and we had this special plan to sneak her here from Bangladesh, and then she was at the hotel, and we had to make sure they didn't run into each other. They had lookouts at the elevator, looking outside. Okay, Sir Fazle's not around, we can move, and that. But we knew this was his absolute favorite singer of all in this genre of music. And so thank you again, Shama Raman, for coming and being with us. Thank you. So now we're at that part of the program where we honor our laureate. And so now to issue the official laureate proclamation, please welcome a man who was a great friend to Dr. Borlaug, great friend to John Ruan Sr., and who's a great friend to the World Food Prize. A man who was governor when the prize was rescued and moved to Iowa, and the man who will soon become the longest-serving governor in the history of the United States of America, the governor of Iowa, the Honorable Terry E. Branstad.
Thank you. Ambassador Quinn, thank you for that very nice introduction. And I want to personally welcome all of you to our beautiful Capitol building. We're very proud to have this very special ceremony here in the House chambers of our Capitol. This is truly an honor for me to be here with all of you for this special occasion. As the governor of Iowa, I've had the honor of participating in several collaborative initiatives and events, which have yielded tremendous success for our state, for our nation, and the world. As has been mentioned, in 1990, John Ruan Sr. and Dr. Norman Borlaug approached me about an idea to give the World Food Prize a new home here in Dr. Borlaug's home state of Iowa. I'm proud to say that I was joined by bipartisan legislators to support this initiative of confronting hunger. But we never imagined how good it can be once Ambassador Quinn became the president of the World Food Prize Foundation. So it's gone to a whole new level. Thank you. It's been a great partnership between the Ruan family and the state of Iowa. Now, 25 years later, we have diplomats from around the world, government officials, scientists, educators, and farmers from all over that are here present in this House chambers for the award that is often referred to as the Nobel Prize of Food and Agriculture. It is very fitting to present this award in a state that encourages students, especially girls, to study STEM subjects of science, technology, engineering, and math in our schools. I'm pleased that the co-chair of the STEM Council for the state of Iowa, our Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, is here tonight. Kim, thank you for your leadership on this advisory council. I'm also proud we have the presiding officers, both women, of the House and Senate here with us. And thank you for your leadership and we're really proud of all the women leaders we have, department heads, the state auditor, and the list goes on. Of course, we have our first woman state senator from Iowa, Joni Ernst, serving now in the United States Senate. Tonight, we will present the World Food Prize award that John Ruwan and Dr. Borlaug created to a distinguished leader from Bangladesh, a leader, a man who based his approach to ending hunger and poverty on the very concept of educating girls and providing opportunities for women. It is therefore my honor to proclaim Sir Fazle Abed as the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate. Congratulations.
In November 1970, Bangladesh, then a part of Pakistan, suffered the deadliest weather event in recorded human history.
Tropical depression has moved across Malaysia and has reached tropical storm strength in the Bay of Bengal. It rapidly intensifies and makes landfall in the early hours of the morning on November 13th. Winds in excess of 140 miles per hour just ravaged the coastline of East Pakistan. Those high winds cause a storm surge at the exact moment of high tide, causing a 6-meter high wall of water that just obliterates everything.
Well, a cyclone killed between 300 and 500,000 people, Lance.
Among those responding to the enormous need for humanitarian assistance was a young Bengali business executive who was drawn to Shala, a remote area where the human toll had been particularly acute. There, he created what he envisioned would be a short-lived relief organization that he named the Bangladesh Rehabilitation Assistance Committee, or BRAC. It is doubtful that anyone at that time could have foreseen that this small, temporary endeavor would, over the next 4 decades, grow to become the largest and considered by many the most effective nonprofit organization in the world. Or that the man who would build this institution would come from such an improbable background. Fazle Hasan Abed was born into a distinguished family in 1936 in Baniachong, in what was then British India. Young Abed, as he is known to family and friends, attended Pabna Jilla School and completed secondary education at Dhaka College. His studies continued at the University of Glasgow in Scotland, following which he pursued a career path in accounting, graduating from the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants in London. But this career path was diverted by the severe dislocation and intense human suffering following Cyclone Bola, and by the conflict and destruction that accompanied his country's successful struggle for independence, a movement in which he was deeply involved. It was in newly sovereign Bangladesh that Abed began what would become his life's work.
I went into an area which was extremely devastated. There was a lot of houses destroyed. Livestock was decimated. The farmers didn't have any plows. And that suddenly brought to me the extreme vulnerability of people in situations like this. And that's how BRAC was born.
In 1972, with an initial grant from Oxfam, under Abed's leadership, BRAC built over 14,000 houses and assisted families to re-establish their livelihoods in 187 villages. Despite this success, Abed was deeply affected by the widespread and extreme poverty that he witnessed. He thus faced a turning point in his life: whether or not to return to the comfortable life of a business executive in the financial capital. It was while standing in the midst of that sea of human devastation in Shala that Abed had the inspiration and vision that would change his life as well as the lives of millions of very poor people forever. For he saw that the temporary relief organization he had created was needed indefinitely, And so, changing the name to the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee, BRAC became his permanent personal endeavor, one he would lead on a full-time basis in the decades ahead. With his strong focus on a broad spectrum of agricultural, economic, and social enterprises, Abed set BRAC on a course that was different from other non-governmental organizations. For it was in this setting he saw that the key to uplifting the poor out of poverty was by educating and empowering women. Under his direction, BRAC became a leader in microfinance, girls' education, female health care, and encouraging the active participation of women in guiding village life. BRAC created a system of schools from elementary level up through BRAC University that now educates over 1 million students a year. And BRAC has recently increased its commitment to girls' education in low-income countries with a 5-year pledge to reach 2.7 million additional girls. To generate funds for his social programs, Abed set up commercial enterprises as part of the BRAC brand, including a printing press, manufacturing industries, a hotel and conference center, retail outlets, and the BRAC Bank. Surpluses from these enterprises go into supporting BRAC's development programs. The objectives of BRAC's agriculture and food security program have been to increase crop and livestock production while ensuring environmental sustainability, adaptability to climate change, and affordability for marginal and small farmers. Abed's leadership has led to extraordinary advancements in the poultry, seed, and dairy industries in Bangladesh, including the creation and support of feed mills, poultry and fish hatcheries, and milk collection and processing centers. Essential to this approach is ensuring that improved inputs and technologies are taken to poor farmers, and that the experience of the farmers is brought back to the laboratories at BRAC in a continual cycle of innovation. BRAC has spread its anti-poverty solutions to 10 other developing countries in Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean. Today, the global reach of BRAC is unprecedented, with more than 110,000 employees around the world, and a further 150,000 BRAC-trained entrepreneurs providing low-cost seeds, medicine, and training to their rural neighbors. Few countries in the world have had the array of devastating natural, political, and man-made tragedies as Bangladesh. And yet, an independent and sovereign Bangladesh has reduced hunger by 50% since the year 2000, thus making great progress toward achieving the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. BRAC, under Abed's leadership, has played an integral and critical role in this dramatic accomplishment. BRAC projects have received visits and high praise from many of the world's foremost leaders. Abed has been recognized with honors and awards from around the globe, including being appointed a Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George by the British Crown. It is therefore most fitting that for his vision, compassion, and leadership, which over 4 decades has provided a pathway out of poverty and enhanced food security for up to 150 million people, that Sir Fazle Hasan Abed is honored as the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate, Sir Fazle Hasan Abed. At this time, the World Food Prize will be presented by John Ruan III, Chairman of the World Food Prize Foundation, with the presence of Her Excellency, former President, Mrs. Joyce Banda.
Fazle, I now invite you to give your remarks.
Thank you, Ambassador Quinn, and Chairman and members of the World Food Prize Selection Committee. It is difficult to express in words how honored and deeply touched I am by this recognition. At the same time, I must acknowledge that the award does not belong to me alone. It is the recognition of BRAC's work over the last 43 years in providing pathways out of poverty for tens of millions of people in Bangladesh and other countries in Africa and Asia. The real heroes in our story are the poor themselves, and in particular, women struggling with poverty who overcome enormous challenges each day of their lives. Through our work across the world, we have learned that countries and cultures vary, but the realities, struggles, aspirations, and dreams of poor and marginalized people are remarkably similar. In order to solve the multidimensional problems of poverty, we have to think big, in terms of millions, not thousands, and holistically. The solutions we have been made available thanks to public health researchers and practitioners, engineers, educators, and scientists following the footsteps of Norman Borlaug and M.S. Swaminathan. In the coming decades, we must refine methods of delivery at scale, placing solutions in the hands of poor people themselves, and track progress. Only by putting the poor, especially women, in charge of their own lives and destinies will poverty and deprivation be removed from the face of the earth. I should like to conclude by thanking the World Food Prize Foundation for honoring me and BRAC. Once again, I'm humbled by this great recognition and reaffirm our commitment to helping the poor and disadvantaged to realize their own potentials. Thank you.
Sir Fazle, you can see how what you have done over these decades has touched everyone here and everyone around the world. And your words were very powerful and very touching. Now, I invite you to have your seat with Lady Sarwat because we have one more presentation to honor you.
Our tradition is to conclude this ceremony with a song that reflects the achievements and impact of our laureate. Sir Fazle, empowering women has been at the center of your effort to eliminate poverty. Our symposium this week has focused on empowering women through education and opportunities for girls, whether in African villages or in American high schools. Throughout this chamber tonight are women political leaders, business executives, scientists, whose accomplishments are a shining example to all girls and young women all over the world. To honor Sir Fazle, to celebrate the accomplished women among us, and to inspire girls everywhere. Please welcome, under the direction of Barbara Slutto, with soloist Katie Merriman, the World Food Prize Empowered Voices Chorus.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Wisdom born of pain, yes, I paid the price, but look how much I've gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. Ooh. You can bend but never break me, 'cause it only serves to make me more determined to achieve my final goal. And I come back even stronger, not a novice any longer, 'cause you've deepened the conviction in my soul. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I've gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. I am woman, watch me grow, see me standing toe to toe, as I spread my loving arms across the land. But I'm still an embryo, with a long, long way to go, until I make my brother understand. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I've gained. If I have to, I can face anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman, I am woman, I am invincible, I am strong, I am woman, I am invincible, I am strong, I am woman, I am woman.
The Empowered Voices Chorus from the Heartland Youth Chorale from Drake University and City Voices of Des Moines. Let's hear it again for them. And Katie Merriman. Katie Merriman.
down and,
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2015 World Food Prize Laureate Award Ceremony. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Great job.
It was a night of celebration, music, and dialogue. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's look at global food and hunger issues. The work of 21st century agriculture continues on the programs of Iowa Public Television, including our longtime agribusiness program, Market to Market. For our entire IPTV crew here at the State House in Des Moines, I'm Mike Pearson. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Funding for the 2015 World Food Prize has been provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, and a grant from the W.T. and Edna M. Dahl Trust.